what did I do in person? And how can I do that same thing, but virtually, and get creative with it?
To kick off our morning every single morning, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, for our daily drop-in in our private Facebook group. And I have maybe, and I say this knowing that you're watching me right now, I have maybe my favorite educator on. That's a huge statement. But LaVonna, I'm so thrilled that you're here to join us for our daily drop-in. For our listeners who may not know everything about you, would you mind kind of sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do in education?
First of all, Ray, wow. Now I feel like I'm blushing. So thank you. That's very sweet of you. All right. So those that don't know me, I started out as a teacher for 10 years at the elementary and secondary levels. And then I ended up going to go into administration, had the degree and everything. And I kind of stepped out, and one thing led to another, which I never planned on, but one thing led to another. And I ended up owning my own consulting company. And so I just travel internationally and have a lot of high interest in brain research, how the brain learns. I'm the person that geeks out on all of that. And that was going very well as far as, helping teachers with strategies and engagement and how the brain learns. It wasn't getting to the heart of what I really was feeling tug at. And that was what is now known as SEL, social emotional learning. Mm-hmm. And so taking the brain research, I ended up creating and founding Ignite Your Shine, and Shine is an acronym, and we just take people through so that they can help their students feel amazing and what their needs are. But what I discovered through the process is that adults also need it. So that's where we are. And I've been doing this for 12 years now. It just happened. Beginning of April was the anniversary for the 12th year, and I cannot believe it. So Ray, thank you for having me on.
It's so exciting. I know as people come in, they're going to say good morning, be commenting. Our daily drop-in is such a fun spot to kind of all come together and set the tone for the morning, which is going to be so perfect with you sharing all the work that you do. And I'm not fibbing. Like I saw you speak for the first time 2 years ago in the beginning of June. You came to Normal, Illinois. I don't know if you remember this because you travel all over the country, but I'm sure you looked at your plans and you're like, Normal, Illinois, is that even a real spot? And you spoke at a high school, and I had the pleasure of attending that event, and your story and your energy, it just blew me away. You were the talk of my entire group that was there. There were so many amazing educators sharing their story, but I think you shine, which it goes so perfectly with the work that you do. And so the joke between a lot of my education friends is that I am like the number one LaVonna Roth fan that exists in the world. And so Jeff Gargis even messaged me earlier today. He's like, are you going to be okay going live? Like, is this going to be a fangirl moment? Can you handle yourself on camera? So I just want to share with the world, I'm doing fine, breathing normally, and very excited to talk shop with you.
All right. Thank you. I'm a fan of yours too. So again, I'm like blushing. It's you don't ever see yourself that way, so to hear someone say that, you're like, what? But me, I get dressed like you do. It's always funny, but I can relate because I have little fan moments too.
It's so cool. And truly, the work you're doing, outside of your incredible story, I hope we get into all these pieces, but the work that you're doing really is making a massive difference. And it seems so timely with the age that we're in right now, with, schools being closed and educators really struggling not only to support themselves, but support their students. And so has your day-to-day schedule changed since COVID-19 has kind of become at the forefront of impacting education?
It has. I'm used to being on the roads, and I'm used to being 30,000 feet in the air. So my family said to me after the third week, they're like, when's the last time you were home this long? And I'm like, yeah, I couldn't even tell you, and because business just continues to go, where we have the privilege of going out and sharing the message more and more. And it's just, it's been a big shift. So I'm doing a lot virtually, anywhere from popping in with like a staff meeting and sharing some tidbits and encouragement. That way we are doing webinars now, which I dabbled in them a little bit, but we're actually putting on some of our own webinars. As a matter of fact, there's one tomorrow night. And we're taking the lessons that we have and we're showing how to do them virtually, which it's easy to do for anyone to do, virtually, but we're helping bridge that. Plus we have brand new ones coming in. But even just being home, I think everybody's experienced it too. Like I could go on and on about the shift we've made, but home here, we live in a high rise and it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and it's me, my husband, and my daughter, and there's only one common area. Well, I'm in it right now. So you can imagine with everything shifting, I'm here a lot. So they unfortunately get confined to their bedrooms, but they don't complain too much.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of good quarantine stories after this of people, living in small spaces. And it's just so funny how you're all making it work, but definitely not easy. Absolutely not easy. I want to actually go back to before we started our daily drop-in, you and I were just chatting before we hit, start. And you had talked about webinars being something that you were apprehensive about early on. And now you're kind of embracing them. And if you don't mind sharing a little bit about that, I think a lot of people can benefit from you sharing this insight because teachers are struggling for the first time. A lot of them weren't comfortable being on camera, so they're going through a transition. But also, I've talked to so many administrators who are trying to provide, rich professional development opportunities for their teachers, but they're, kind of anxious. Does a webinar really give the teachers the feel that they need? So what have you kind of done to make that transition for yourself?
Yeah. So first of all, I've been okay on camera. I used to not be. Like I used to be petrified of please not put me on camera. Please do not put me on camera. And now it's just kind of become a way of life, especially now. But it's getting comfortable with it's okay. Like just be you. Ray, I look at you, I've looked at some of these in the past that you've done, and you just have this natural ability because you relax, right? You're just you. So even if you don't feel that way, you come across that way. And I would say the same thing to everybody else. That sometimes I think when we get on camera, we think, oh my goodness, I'm on camera. And that is a whole mental shift right there that we have to work past, a mindset of it. It's just like looking, like right now I'm looking right into the camera. It's because I'm imagining I'm talking right to you. I could look down and actually look at you, Ray, but I'm going to look at you through here. So one of the tidbits I have is look at the camera when you're talking. So administrators, if you really want to connect with your teachers, you want to connect with your students, make sure you're not looking. I mean, you're going to have to at times look at students. I get that. But as often as you can, especially if it's something that's important or something that you are emotionally connecting with them, like I miss you, right? Don't say I miss you. Right, because they don't feel that. It's not the eye contact that we normally have in person. So then when it comes to webinars, my biggest thing, and Ray, I was telling you this before we came on, is that I can't see people. Like I'm about to do a professional development. I think it's either this week or next week, and I can't see them. That is not my favorite platform. Right? I need to know that there are people on the other end. I mean, I do recordings and I get that, but it is so different to be able to see everybody because one of the things that I ask is cameras on. And I know that there are circumstances where, hey, camera can't be on, and I get that. So that's okay, but be on as often as you can. And we pretty much make that a ground rule because I want to be able to see, even if on Zoom, I'm clicking through arrows and looking at the pages of people on there, I still want to know you're there. I want to see reactions. Because reactions, especially as a speaker, I didn't realize how much feedback we get until one, I was doing a webinar, and two, I was in a really unique keynote situation with three keynotes at once talking at the same time. And that's a whole other story. And then that's when I realized how much we cue in on feedback. Mm-hmm. So being able to see a head nod or being able to see a thumbs up or being able to see yep, got my paper ready to roll. Right. Being able to see that, those are all cues for me where we are. So if that helps anyone, it's a definite shift, but we just have to think, the question I like to think is, what did I do in person? And how can I do that same thing, but virtually, and get creative with it?
Yeah, I think there's so many different offshoots of this conversation. I'm going to try and remember all the different ways that we can take this, but even just your quick tip when speaking to somebody, trying to coach them of how to be on camera, looking at the camera, because it makes such a big difference. And I mean, you modeled it perfectly. You're saying, I miss you, and you're looking down versus I miss you and you're looking up. We really want to make sure that we're not only, kind of like comfortable with our uncomfortability being on camera, but we're also thinking about the user on the other end who's going to be experiencing the message more so than anything else. So when we can take that approach, I think that's so powerful. And the idea of getting feedback from the audience is very similar to any teacher right now who's hosting Zoom calls that wants the feedback from students. So kind of coaching them of how to use their camera to give you the feedback as you might be facilitating a discussion is something that I think is really important for teachers to work on mastering right now too.
Yes, and we can even flip that. What about students learning these skills? Because I don't think virtual is going to go away for them. And so as they get older and then they graduate and they get a job, I can guarantee at some point they may be doing interviews through this, right? So learning that how to look in the camera and that you do have to bring more energy. Like if I sat here and I was like, Ray, it is so great to be on here with you. I'm really excited. Versus it is so exciting to be on here with you. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm excited to see the Facebook users. Totally different energy. You have to bring it more. And when you may feel uncomfortable with your body, you have to actually use it a bit more so that people can feel the energy that they would have felt in person, but don't through a camera.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. It's really, there's such a difference between the energy you can have standing in front of somebody and on camera. So you're like doubling the energy in hopes that it gets through, right? I mean, speaking of our Facebook users, we have a ton of people that are commenting. Good morning so far. Dave Schmidt Oz here. We have Andrea, Brianne, Holly. So Lindsay, it's so great to see everybody who's joining us bright and early this morning. Feel free, by the way, in these daily drop-ins, Levana and I are going to talk shop about education, but we're more than happy to take your questions. We want to hear how your remote learning experience is going. I know for a lot of us, this is kind of like the 5th or 6th week. For others, this might be only the 2nd week. So as you are navigating through the experiences that you're trying to offer to students, we'd love to hear about, what are you doing with your students Monday morning? What are you doing later this afternoon? How are you coaching your families? How can we help? This is really a great use of your space. So feel free to post things here. Levana, I don't know about you, but I was working with teachers last week and they were talking about the same thing of like speaking in the camera because they were recording a video. So it wasn't a webinar. It wasn't like something that was live, but they were recording a video for their students. And they were struggling between like looking at their notes for their video and also looking up. And I joked with them. I'm like, do you have a Post-it? Like grab two or three bullet points, stick it up by the camera. And so when you're looking at your notes, it looks like you're looking at the camera. It makes people feel like you're being very present. Do you have any other like weird tips like that you found really helpful?
That's one of my little tricks is the Post-it notes, but they go up and around depending upon how long of the video I'm doing, for example. I still do slides if it's something, so let me go back to the Post-it notes and I'll come back to slides. So the Post-it notes, I have it. So it is very obvious when you look to the side, and you're trying to read something really quick. So I still do the Post-it notes, but what's interesting is I tend to memorize it just by placing them around and looking through like twice. But what I do is only 1 or 2 words because otherwise you're trying to read it and you're like, wait, what? Oh, and you're coming back. So if you just put 1 or 2 words that are triggers for what your train of thought would be, and you're just kind of glancing over and no one can really tell. I mean, yes, they see you looking, but it looks like you're just naturally looking off to the side. But you're really grabbing a word. And I do it in the order on the frame. I guess to you, it's probably going, is that reversed?
I don't know.
So is this the normal rainbow way for you?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. See, it's backwards when you just did it to me. So that's why I was wondering. A little fun trick, little mirror trick.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, so there's that. But I also oftentimes, if it's professional development, I definitely do slides. And I do that. One, it's great because I anchor myself. But when I'm teaching, I'm still looking at the camera. But that image, I know what that image represents for me. But I also use that image mostly because I want them to have an image to anchor to as well. So it serves a dual purpose in that case. And you brought up the fact that, it's easy for us to be like looking down and somebody else I saw make that camera. It's easy to look at the camera when I don't have someone else's video to look at. Yeah. And you're right. So when somebody else is talking, I look at them, and so it looks weird to wherever I am, but I want to see you. I want to see your body language, and such. But when I actually am talking to the person, that's when I go to the camera.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. I think that a lot of people, not only want the benefit of trying to share their story and really make the impact by looking in the camera, but also we need to all be a part of the conversation. So you can't be like on the whole time, I'm going to look at the camera and look really, engaged. Being able to look at somebody and hear, what they're saying and see their facial expressions. I mean, that's a part of being a good communicator. So finding that balance is important. I think the use of slides is something that I'm hoping all teachers, all, educator consultants who are, doing webinars, slides are a huge benefit because you do want to be able to not only see, the person speaking, but you want to give them a visual for whatever you're teaching on. I know you do a lot of different trainings for educators, but I think that visual is what solidifies the idea outside of having a connection with you.
I agree. And I also recommend more slides than you would normally have, and so it's kind of the opposite to me. So when I am in person, I will have one slide and it's just an image, right? And so that image though is anchoring into the brain, like, oh my goodness, okay, I see this image, and I remember 2 or 3 things that she said from this or he said from this. So I think the images are great. However, when you're sitting from a laptop, that stagnant image is what you're looking at the whole time. It gets to be a little more monotonous. So it's better to, at least in my opinion, this is what I do, is I add more slides in so that I'm clicking a little bit faster than normal. And that way they're seeing the visuals changing. So instead of me going, okay, I'm so tired looking at my computer screen, they're not realizing as much because the image keeps shifting and the brain keeps paying attention.
And that's so cool. I like that idea of, using different strategies. We all need to use different strategies in the current times that we're in. And so that is a simple one that can help keep people engaged, I think is fabulous. Will you give us a little more information about, what types of trainings are you seeing? What are you providing to educators, whether it be before COVID-19 kind of shut things down, or even right now with your virtual professional development? I know you're offering to districts around the country, around the world. What are some of your favorite topics to talk through with educators?
Yeah, so more than ever, Ignite Your Shine being a social emotional learning topic that, we've done for years now, it's needed more than ever, and so that's why our lessons were created and meant for the classroom, but we have shifted them to be virtual for that reason. It's just little tiny tweaks of what you do within that. So we're doing a lot of that. I have a lot of districts who are asking, can you come in and just do like a 30-minute faculty meeting with my staff? And so that's coming into play. And so for that, it's inspirational, motivational. If people need to see energy and positivity, and that's what Shine is all about. And people at this point, especially, I think it was way before this, we've needed this, but now more than ever, people need to know that they do shine. What they are doing is amazing, and that everybody is doing the best they can. Nobody planned on this and could plan for this. So it looks very different. And the horror stories of what I'm hearing makes me sick to my stomach. But it also means that it tells me those adults need it more than ever too. So not only social emotional learning for students, it's social emotional wellness. And so I feel like at the same time we have these wonderful stories that I see too. But the thing that I'm noticing is that the more a lot of educators are trying to do, the more they're wearing themselves out. And we can't have that, because you wear yourself out, you get sick, we need you. Your students need you. So, the Ignite Your Shine is a big one. Like I said, I do a lot with brain research. My books are based on that. And so we're also looking at how do you virtually deliver engaging strategies through, a camera to students and still having them participate and not always being learning the newest technology tool. So that's
really what I love about the work you're doing, is that you're really rooted in like good practice, research that really, impacts, like purposefully impacts the work that you're doing for your students and teachers. I think a lot of, there's a lot of things going on that are inspirational. We kind of call those like fluffy sometimes. And yes, there is a time and place for those, but the work that you continue to do, and especially the group that you're with, they're constantly not only providing inspiration, but really like very strategic, tactical things that you can do that make us stronger, it makes us better.
Yes, exactly. And it's just using, the brain research and how the brain learns and psychology with it. And, that's what I have had the privilege of presenting internationally with neuroscientists and cognitive scientists and cognitive psychologists, and learning with them and from them, I should say, and then bridging that into education. And that's just been something I actually last week just did. And I did a keynote. It was supposed to be an in-person neuroscience conference, but and we ended up doing it virtual, but having a chance to learn from them, I say, and then bridging that into the classroom has just been a joy that I've had ever since, I think 2012 was the first time that all that happened, but I was already into brain research at that point. But it's simple little things that we can do, and I feel like if we just take some of that pressure off, instead of feeling like it has to be all of this stuff and tons of innovative stuff, it's more around what is the support that you can give? And that's more than anything right now. As humans, we just need to have that connection. Our children we as adults don't really know how to process all of this, let alone our children. And then we're making demands of what we used to do in the classroom. No, we can't. We are in a different time frame. And our children's brains are in a different state. They're not in the learning state, right? They're still survival versus thinking mode. And so we have to keep that in mind. And how do we stay and keep them healthy so that when we do get to go back to school, because it'll come, right? When we do get to go back, I want them coming back healthier, not having distraught and the brain completely fried from cortisol. And we need to put them in a place of learning. So if we shift how learning looks, that's going to be huge. It cannot look, and the amount of content they did and we provided in the classroom at that time to now be the same. I have administrators reaching out to me, teachers, I have psychologists reaching out to me, parents, and they're all distraught about the same thing. Okay, then let's back off. We're in a different time period. Let's look and make learning look different too.
Yeah, and that's been, I think, the focal point of every conversation in our daily drop-in and everywhere else that we've been having conversations trying to support educators through this transition is, giving yourself a little grace and really seeing this for what it is. And we need to focus more on connecting with our students and making sure that their well-being is secure before we talk through anything else. I think we've had numerous people quote, like the Maslow versus Bloom's, and wanting to make sure that we have the right focus during this time, which is very hard. I mean, I myself sat in a meeting last week with some of my colleagues who were adamant that new content needs to be taught. We still need to keep up the rigor and da-da-da-da-da. And it's so interesting to me, because I think that if their students were in the headspace to be in the right space to be able to handle that, fine, go for it. But I know that right now, my students, my families, they're not. And so we need to find a balance of not being content-focused educators and being whole child thinkers. It's very different.
I agree. And I can even speak for myself. I have no problem sharing this, that I have done this. I'm a pretty even-keeled person. I'm pretty positive. I reframe things. I look further, and I train my brain to do that. Not because it's a fluff thing, not because it's rainbows, roses, and unicorns, but because I know for mental health, I can't change a lot of things. So what I can do is reframe these things. And so I just find that it's very challenging as even an adult at times. And like I said, I don't mind sharing this. I have been literally on the floor in tears, sobbing during this time, because everything changed, and that looks different for each of us, but it did change. And there's been times I found myself sobbing and crying, and then I pulled myself up. And to me, that's what strength is about. Strength is not about releasing of emotion and saying, oh my goodness, I'm so weak, I'm such a wimp. No, that's not what that's about. You're human, and humans feel emotions. We feel strong emotions. So having a moment to honor that, value that, recognize it, sit with it. But then when you begin to pull yourself back up, whether it's physically and then some emotionally, that's where strength comes from. And so I did that a couple times. I thought I was done. And last week I found myself again, just sobbing. And I think we all have to realize is that we're going through some loss, loss of what was normal for us and a loss of what things look like. And this term new normal, so last thing I would say before I get quiet here for a minute, because I get a whole soapbox on this, but when we talk about new normal, I'm going to challenge, and I've said this on every podcast, I said this on every webinar, I said this on every faculty meeting I'm doing, any professional development, that we have got to add the word temporary before the words new normal. Because the brain hears new normal and the brain goes, my life will never be the same. This is my new normal. This is how it's going to be forever. And the brain has to process all of that. And that's not true. That's not a true statement. It is a temporary new normal. Now, some things may shift going forward forever. It's true. But it is a temporary new normal. We will get back to going to restaurants. We will be going back into classrooms. We will be going to professional development like the Teach Better conference. There's all of these things that will come up. that we'll get back to normal. So telling our brain temporary means, okay, at some point, like Ray, you even said this before we got on, that at the end of May, you've been extended to the end of May. That may get extended in Illinois beyond that to stay home, or it may get released earlier. Either way, it's a temporary thing. So I'm going to challenge everyone to add it temporary new normal anytime you see that, because now you're telling your brain this is not forever.
Oh, it's so important. And these quick tips, I mean, it sounds so simple, but I can just tell you, I'm sure that all of our listeners right now are experiencing this as well, that reminder is so important right now. Even this morning as I was getting up, I mean, hearing these, it seems so simple to add one word into a sentence that we've been saying on repeat, but to add, this little quick tip, it really allows us to reframe our mindset, which is important. Somebody even commented, they really are so inspired by what we were saying so far. They want to make sure they can share this message with students. I think a lot of us are feeling that way just with everything you've shared. With all the work that you've done, do you do work outside of, speaking to districts? Do you have a website or a blog where you house information that if I'm an educator and I'm listening now and I wanted to look further into the amazing work you're doing and continue to get your words of affirmation, is there a spot that I can do that?
Well, thank you. So YouTube, you can go to and put in Ignite Your Shine, or put in LaVonna Roth, like either of those, and you're going to see, I will tell you they're old videos. I have not been videotaped in a while. And Ray, you know this because of when I do my professional development, I talk about Ignite Your Shine. I share a lot of my personal story, and I don't allow that to be recorded. So because of that, there's not a whole lot of recordings. I need to, and I've been saying this, and I said, 2020 is the year. We are going to bring in videographers. We're going to get it. We'll just edit my personal story part out. And here we are. So I don't know if it's going to happen in 2020, but YouTube is a great spot. I've been on quite a few podcasts. So maybe even Googling just my name. I don't know. It's crazy what you can find these days, but pulling that up, you may be able to find different podcasts that I've been on. Of course, everyone's welcome to, email me if you have a challenge with finding something and you want to. So there's that. But yeah, it's a different world, huh?
Well, I know you've been on a lot of podcasts. One I can give a shout out to is Teach Better Talk Podcast. I know some people right now are listening to this daily drop-in as a bonus episode on Teach Better Talk Podcast. But if you're here participating live in our private group at teachbettergroup.com, then I would challenge you to go check out all that LaVonna's done. I know I'm going to embarrass myself really quick right now, but your episode of Teach Better Talk Podcast, we quote all of the time. And I know that sounds very creepy, and I apologize for being a fan, but there was so many great little snippets and nuggets of information, very similar to this daily drop-in, that were small little changes or really powerful statements that we refer back to constantly. And it's so nice to be able, we have done, over 165 episodes of Teach Better Talk. But, when you get people that come on and share their story, you specifically had an answer to a question that really stuck out. And I don't know if you'll remember this, but we asked you, the question was something along the lines of, what's getting you excited about education these days? And your answer was, I like that people are frustrated, because when people are frustrated, change occurs. And you said it much more eloquently than I just did, but it was such a thinker that we quote it all of the time because it was such a powerful statement. Do you mind maybe sharing a little bit more on why maybe that was your answer? And granted, this was probably over a year ago, so you may not. Maybe your answer has changed.
No, I agree, because it's when we're in a comfort zone, we think everything's good. Why do we need to change? I don't see a whole lot of value in that. But when we're frustrated with something, we pay attention more. We're more likely to be open to opportunities, open to suggestions, open to shifts. Right. So language, I'm going to go back to that for a moment. Language is extremely important. I said temporary new normal. But for example, if I said to you, Ray, we're about to do a discussion and it's going to be a struggle. Or I said, we're about to do a discussion and it's going to be a challenge. Which one, Ray, would you rather do?
Well, the challenge definitely seems more positive. Struggle makes me very nervous.
Exactly. So when we talk about it's one word, but one word matters because in this case, it's connotation, right? When the brain hears struggle, it hears hard work. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do this. Like, seriously, it's going to be a struggle. Okay, who wants to do that? But when I say challenge, we have learned that challenge means, bring it on. I want to see if I can do this, right? So, but literally is one word. So it's the same shift as when we talk about a frustration with something versus I'm comfortable with it, or I think I already know everything about this. What is it that gets people to move? And it's when they are uncomfortable. It's when they're frustrated, when they are tired of things. So, the quarantine right now is creating a high level of frustration and some other issues too. But, when we think about frustration, so I think it's a great time to be thinking about, okay, so how do we shift this? And that's going to look different for everybody. But no, I know it sounded so weird, and I told you all that. I think because that's the only time I think I've ever said that on a podcast was on your guys's. But I shared that I think frustration actually it's a shift in the reframing of how we're going to look at things. So.
Well, and it was totally spot on. I think that's why it threw us off, because we asked that question on every episode. I mean, anybody who's watching right now and listen, Jeff Gargish just commented, that was episode 33. So we have done a lot of episodes since that point. And it's just funny because, we say, what's keeping you excited about education? And people say, design thinking or mastery learning or student, SEL support, all these different things. And just, I remember being so stumped where you're like, I love that people are frustrated. And I was like, whoa, like thinker.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. I really don't. I knew it came from in here, with me. Like I do value that, but I never thought I would say that because normally I'm saying like brain research, social emotional learning,
right.
It shines. So yes. Speaking of, I did forget, I'm not always the best at this, but if people do go to igniteyoursshine.com, we do have, I think it's /media. But anyway, if you go to the website, igniteyoursshine.com, we do have a lot of the podcasts I've been on there. And I know Dave Schmidt, who is on here, I've been on his podcast too. So just a couple extra little nuggets there if you want to know about that. And thank you, Jeff, for posting that. Good morning, Jeff, for posting that link too. So they can link back to there if they want to learn more.
I won't lie. I mean, being a part of, being on a podcast, like hosting with Jeff Gargish is very fun. Although I'll never tell him that because he's just my co-host. He's okay. I do all the work. But there's so many other podcasts that I enjoy listening to. Dave Schmidt Oz is one that I love listening to because he is so honest, authentic, and real. And I love podcasters that are able to bring, kind of like we were saying with webinars, like they're bringing energy and it's just through an audio. And so it's a very different medium to share insight because you're trying to keep people's attention. You're trying to ask questions and have a deep discussion. I feel like Dave Schmidt is a boss at it. So I know he's listening right now. We really appreciate all that you do, Dave. It's so super cool. So fun.
Oh, Jeff said it's recorded what you said. You may have to go back and edit that if you can.
This is the problem. Every time I do some sort of like live video, like we're doing right now for our daily drop-in in our private Facebook group or a podcast episode or anything in between, Jeff gets to edit it and I don't actually get to do any of the editing. So he'll cut out any parts he doesn't like. But anytime I admit something, he's like, I'm going to save that audio clip. That's going to be in there for good.
Hey, Jeff, you should start moving that to the front of the podcast. Sorry, Ray.
There you go, man. Ugh, this is why I'm like, we just actually had an episode come out this morning because we publish Teach Better Talk episodes on Mondays and Thursdays. And then we're actually publishing 5 bonus episodes thanks to our daily drop-in. So 7 episodes a week. It's been really fun to share all this outside of the free downloads we have and the blogs that are all publishing at teachbetter.com and the courses and everything else in our academy. But we just published one this morning with Becky Thal. And by the way, I'm sorry, it's Becky Thal's anniversary. So we can say happy anniversary to Becky.
Happy anniversary, Becky.
Yes, we love you, Becky. But she did such a great job on Teach Better Talk, just being authentic and sharing her story. And she has such a fun personality. So you would love her, Lavana. She's wonderful.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I come across her.
Yeah, huh. She's a powerhouse in education. She's been great to connect with. Awesome. So in terms of, we talked a lot about a few different things, and there's been so many powerful things we want to make sure we continue to chat on. But with the work that you're doing, what's kind of your daily schedule? Can you help some of us? I know a lot of educators have struggled to find their right schedule, throughout the day, especially while being quarantined.
Yeah, I think routine is so important to an extent. Like we all like novelty, the brain it loves that. It loves things that are new. However, everything seems to be new pretty much right now. So because of that, routines are even more important. It creates, it's for adults too, not just for students, but a routine creates the safety net and the brain says, oh, there's a structure to this. I have a purpose for today. So I've had to, and it's taken me a little bit of a while to figure this out for me because I knew what my days would look like when I was home versus out traveling and speaking. Right. And now I had to shift. And so for a while there, I knew, I finally figured it out. I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I having such a challenge? And it had to do with the fact that I had gotten away from a routine of any kind. And so what we try to do, and I recommend all of you have some kind of a routine, but like in the morning, what is the thing that you do, right? So for me, I get up out of bed, I brush my teeth, I brush my hair, I may put makeup on depending on what's happening that day, and then I come out and I make coffee. That is my morning routine, and that just allows me to say, okay, we're starting the day. And what I do is the night before, as I put on my calendar and I put on my task list, what are the top 3 things that have to get done today? Like these are the non-negotiables, and that's what I call them. And then below that are all the other little tasks that happen. Because those little tasks can take a lot of my time. So what I do is I focus on what are these 3 things that have to get done today, and then I get to the little tasks later. But I also take it a step further. So this may look a little bit different for you all, but I'm coming at it from, being someone who delivers professional development, is in the morning, it is all about creation. And in the afternoon, I do connection. So I actually am teaching people right now. I launched my first course on teaching people who want to get into education consulting. And I teach this dynamic when you're home to do this. Because what happens is, not for everybody, you have to know you too, is my most creative time is in the morning. So I have all of my creative tasks in the morning. And then when I do calls, which I have a team who helps me schedule that, they know do not schedule those until the afternoon. Because that's when my creativity's kind of waned and now I'm ready for some connection. And it's not always clean cut like that, but we do the best that we can to stick to that because we know that's what works. So at home, go ahead, Ray. I see you're going to want to say something. Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, I'm like, okay, so those are 2 great suggestions. If you're listening right now, just to summarize, one is that when you get up in the morning, pick 3 things. You can absolutely get 3 things done. Pick 3 things that you want to focus on before anything else. And then the other tip was to consider chunking your time, chunking your day to utilize what skills are best during those time periods, right? Like creativity in the morning, connections in the afternoon. Those are 2 amazing tips for somebody listening, trying to structure their routine. So keep going.
No, that was a good summary there. So, and, I have had different educators in general, not just administrators, reaching out and saying, well, what do I do? Because I've got kids at home. How do I handle this? And then, I get an email from a parent who says my child hasn't done the work and now I'm jumping off of what I'm supposed to be doing and going and taking care of that. So this is where the other concept is, I did not make this concept up, but batching is so important, so that's where like these small tasks, for example, can eat everything up, right? They can take so much of the time. And then you look at the 3 things or 2 things or 1 thing you wanted to get done, and to get back to that is so much harder because now you're down to this much time at the end of the day, or you're working all night. Right? You're burning the candle at both ends. So batching it. So for example, I know with little ones, it's a little bit different, but with younger kids saying like putting on an office hat, like a party hat, or putting up a fun little sign and telling that your child or children that, hey, right now I'm not available if it's emergency, obviously. Right? But while this hat is on my head or while this object is sitting here, that means I'm in office hours, which means you're in school hours, right? So you need to work on an assignment. And set a 30-minute timer and then say, when that timer goes off, you pause, you stop what you're doing, you turn to your children and you say, okay, what is it that you needed? Right now, I understand that children will forget things, and that's sometimes it's okay if they forget things because it wasn't that important anyway. But if it is important, they will remember it. And now take that time to do that and say, okay, at lunch, I'm going to check your work, your schoolwork. I'm not going to check it every minute you come running to me. I'm going to check it at maybe a 10 o'clock break. I'm going to check it at lunch when we get together, and I'm going to do it again at 2 or 3 o'clock. Those are just simple little routines that I hope it sparks, even if you're in a different situation. I hope that it sparks some thoughts there on how can you establish these are my time periods of this, because it allows you to have the time that you need to work on some things, but at the same time, it allows others to be moving forward what they need.
Absolutely. Lindsay just posted a comment agreeing. She says it's so important to clarify where my time's going instead of simply trying to manage it during the day. So important to remember we create the boundaries in our schedule. Love these tips. And then it looks like she posted another comment saying, yes, we have a family time sign, a working time sign, and a learning sign at home. It's made all the difference with my daughter. What a great suggestion. I love that. And I think that a lot of parents, and especially educators that are parents, are seeking these suggestions. We just referred to Becky Thal, who was just on Teach Better Talk podcast. Her and I have had so many conversations over the past 6 weeks because she's got 3 kids at home and she's struggling to be an educator supporting other educators, and she's a classroom teacher. So when she was trying to manage her time, I had this moment, and I hope it was as helpful as I wanted it to be for her, but I'm like, you are juggling a lot. You need to give yourself some grace. We need to find these strategies to put in place because you can't juggle everything all the time. And so I think these little quick tips for our families are so important to create that structure in our schedule so that every day can be effective,
Yes, and it lets you have the day a little bit at least how you wanted it. So yeah. I use that same word that Lindsay does, boundaries. It is putting those boundaries in place, and we have to. And one of the boundaries has to be self-care. Like that needs to be a non-negotiable, that it goes on the calendar, and that's when you do it. Unless you have to move it, then my rule is, and I teach this all the time in professional development, my rule is you can move it, but you're allowed to move it one time. Once you move it, you're not allowed to move it again. It has to happen, because otherwise what happens? We move it, and it doesn't get done.
Wow, you can only move it one time. That makes it like a more challenging decision, because then you're choosing to move it. It has to be moved purposefully versus just, blowing it off.
Right. Maybe I'll do it tonight, or maybe tomorrow I'll get it done. If not, maybe I'll go Friday. Like you're already pushing it off. So yes, I physically have people do this in my professional development. I have them take their calendars out. They have to put in there what's the one thing they're going to do for them at least twice a week. They get it on the calendar twice. I have them verbally commit out loud, and then I tell them the rule. And that you can move it one time. So I can move it early in the day. I can move it later. I can move it a day ahead, a day back. But once you move it, you cannot, because otherwise it's like, you give everybody else everything they need, and you don't give yourself what you need. And we have to do that. And we will be better at everything that we do. We'll be happier humans because we are taking care of ourselves.
Okay, so now I have a follow-up to that. So if you are going to do something for yourself and you're referring to, moving something on the calendar, I love this rule. This is so funny that you're talking about this. What are some of the things that you've seen educators say, okay, this is my thing I'm doing for myself? Like this could be anything from taking a sip of coffee that's just for you every single morning to 45 minutes of yoga during the day, right? I mean, it can be anything.
Yeah, it can be anything. So, of course, I always encourage exercise because I'm big on the brain and taking care of the body too. But, I've had to work on my own advice with that. So I've been excited to say the past 3 months, I've been very diligent about that. And I have a rule of 3 to 4 times a week, non-negotiable. So I calendar it in. Just like what I ask everybody else to do, and it's been so much better. But a lot of them say exercise, anywhere from walking to running, biking, hiking, canoeing. I get a lot of that. Even some will say reading a book, just sitting down to read a book. And what they mean by that is I encourage oftentimes, yes, read educational books, but what are you doing to read a book that's not educational? Just giving yourself a break and just absorbing some other information. And that's me also lecturing myself on this. So there's that. And then when I give them examples, I tell them take a bubble bath. Like, when's the last time you took a bubble bath? Go take one, and just let yourself relax and have some time for you, and shut that bathroom door or blow bubbles. And that can be a family thing too. But I encourage you, when it's the one thing that you do twice a week for you, I do mean it to not be with a family, not anyone. And I know some people just don't have that ability to do that. If they're, let's say, a single parent home with kids, it's a little bit more challenging. But could you put on headphones and have everybody put on headphones and just have some quiet time together, or mindfulness, whether it's meditation, whatever you choose, devotion, whatever it is for you, and take that time.
LaVonna, this is why I needed you to come live for our daily drop-in, because there has been so many tips and tricks that truly anyone listening right now, whether they're participating live in our private Facebook group or they're listening after the fact on YouTube or as a bonus episode of Teach Better Talk podcast, things that you can truly take and not only implement tomorrow, but like implement like in the next hour or so in your day to just make this, a better experience, not only for you, but hopefully your family and your students and those you serve. It's so important. So I love all this. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been awesome. I'm seeing the occasional comments over there. Mine says Facebook user, so unless they put their name, I can't tell. But it's great to see little comments pop up. But Ray, thank you, because you all are providing at Teach Better. You're providing such a gift to everyone with the episodes you're putting out, having this on YouTube, the conference that you put on in October
this year. Yeah.
Yes. And whatever else you all come up with, these are all nuggets of inspiration that everybody needs, plus of high value with what you are providing. So I want to take a moment to thank you and the Teach Better team, not only for having me, but everything you're doing for everybody, especially at a time like this. It's even more important. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. We love it. We love the work we've been able to do. And LaVonna, having you a part of our daily drop-in was such a highlight. It was a perfect way to kick off our week, Monday morning. Remember that if you are listening right now and you kind of enjoyed everything that was shared, please go connect with everything that LaVonna Roth is doing. She's doing things all over the place. You can find her on Twitter, on her website. There's a ton of different resources that she's able to share out, but she's definitely an educator to follow. And I know that I said early on that I was a fan, but I really am. You've done incredible work, and I'm honored to continue to learn from you. For everybody else, also remember that we have a ton going on at teachbetter.com. Blogs publishing constantly, downloads. We're just trying to do as much as possible to support this amazing network. So do not choose to isolate yourself physically isolate yourself, but not emotionally. We are here to support you. So stay connected. Let us know what you need. And if we don't have it, we'll find somebody who does, and we'll make sure that you get what you need. So LaVonna, thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate you. And for everyone else, we will see you again tomorrow morning for our daily drop-in at 7 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Eastern. See you later.